Hey folks, my name is Brian Miller. I am a full-time magician and comedian, primarily performing for college and corporate events and private events throughout the United States. I also have a strong academic background in philosophy. In fact, I turned down PhD offers to pursue my career in entertainment, but I have found that there are a lot of really interesting ways that magic and philosophy intertwine, and we are going to look at some of those today. Now, if you're interested in magic theory, the theory of performing magic, you'll find my thoughts on that, or at least some of my thoughts on that, in my manuscript entitled For Your Consideration. It's available at various websites, including my own, and you'll find that link below. Lying and deception. Magicians know all about that, don't we? But is it right? Wrong? Is it okay what we're doing to our audiences? Lying to them? Really? Deceiving them? I don't know. Philosophers actually have quite a bit to say about lying and deception. In fact, a contemporary philosopher, Thomas Carson, he said that the test of a moral theory, that's a theory of morality that's given by a philosopher, and almost every great philosopher has come up with a moral theory. He said the test of a moral theory is how well it deals with the issues of lying and deception. That's how much weight he puts on it. And magicians, we know. Well, let's talk about it. Deception, lying. Let's first define what they are, and then let's talk about it. Deception. There are two conditions for deception. One, you cause somebody to hold a false belief or to persist in holding a false belief, to continue holding it. And two, you do not believe that it's true, whatever the thing is. So you cause someone to hold a false belief or continue to hold one, and you do not believe that it's true. It's important to note that I can deceive you by telling the truth. It seems odd, but magicians actually do this all the time. For instance, if I'm giving a performance and I'm doing a card trick and somebody asks me and they say, is that a real deck of cards? And I go, I buy these cards at Walmart. Now, suppose that it is a magic trick deck of cards. Now, they sell magic trick things at Walmart, but most normal people wouldn't know that. Right? A magician would know that. Suppose it's a magic trick deck of cards, but I bought it at Walmart. When somebody accuses me or asks me and says, hey, is that a real deck of cards? And I go, I buy these at Walmart. If they now believe that it is a real deck because of me saying I buy these at Walmart, I have deceived them by telling the truth. To me, that's fascinating. And magicians, we really do it all the time, even if you don't notice it. Also, of course, you can deceive by gestures and acts that are non-verbal. And again, magicians, we do this quite a bit. Deception is not really the interesting thing here. Lying is the interesting thing. So let's talk about it. Lying. What are the conditions for having told a lie or lying? First condition, you make a false statement to another person. Make sense? Two, you believe that it is false, right? So in other words, you make a false statement, but you also believe that it's false. If I make a false statement, but I actually believe that what I'm saying is true, I haven't lied to you, I'm simply wrong, okay? Make sense? So you make a false statement and you believe that it is false. And third, and this one is somewhat controversial, this comes from Thomas Carson, you intend to warrant the truth of your statement. This is not widely accepted yet by philosophers. It's certainly contentious, and the debate's going on right now, but it's an interesting concept. So what does it mean to warrant the truth? Well, warranty of truth, Carson says, is kind of a guarantee that what I'm saying is true. It's an implicit or explicit promise or guarantee that what I'm saying is true. We're familiar with things like this, say, in court, when they say, this is explicit. I swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me die Vernon, right? That's the explicit guarantee of truth or warranty of truth. But implicitly, we do this all the time in all ordinary conversations. We have what Carson calls a default warranty of truth, which is very strong. When you just meet somebody and you're chatting and having a conversation, and maybe your acquaintances or strangers just met for the first time, you don't automatically assume that they're lying to you or that what they're saying is untrue. You actually implicitly and default, you assume that what they're saying is true unless they give you a reason to doubt them, in which case the game changes. So to lie, you must make a false statement, you believe that the statement is false, and you promise or guarantee, either implicitly or explicitly, that what you're saying is true, though it's not. That's what lying is. Now, we know what lying is, so the question is, what are the moral implications? Whether or not lying or deceiving is morally acceptable depends on your moral theory or your moral framework, and every great philosopher has had their own moral framework. So let's just examine the two most famous moral frameworks. First, Kantian deontology, the moral framework of Immanuel Kant. He came up with the categorical imperative. You've probably heard this in school at some point in your Philosophy 101 class and probably promptly ignored it because they talk pompously like I'm doing right now. The Kantian deontology, the categorical imperative, is really quite brilliant. Kant said, "Do only that which you would will to be a universal law." In other words, only act upon something that you would say should be a universal law. For example, if you're considering whether or not you should cheat on a test, first, if you're in a specific situation, you abstract from that situation and then you generalize across the universal. So if you're thinking, should I cheat on this test? You go, okay, you take should I cheat on this test, you abstract and generalize, and you get the statement, everybody should always cheat. Should that be a law? If that shouldn't be a law, then Kant says, then you shouldn't cheat in this particular instance. So when you're trying to decide whether something is right or wrong, Kant says abstract and then generalize. And if you would not say that thing should be a universal law, then you should not do it. So what would Kant say about lying? He would say, absolutely not, under any circumstances, in any way. Even a little white lie is completely wrong to Immanuel Kant. According to this theory, he says, any lying at all, no matter how small, no matter for what purpose, even if your lie was going to save a life or save a family member, it's still morally wrong. Another famous framework is John Stuart Mill's utilitarianism. That's a big word, but you probably know what this theory is intuitively, though I will make it a little more academic for you. Utilitarianism relies on the greatest happiness principle. That sounds joyous and wonderful. The greatest happiness principle states that actions are right if they promote happiness over the opposite of happiness. It uses something called the utility calculus, which is math. It's a mathematically based moral theory. The utility calculus says you add up all the pleasure that results from a situation, you add up all the pain, and you subtract. And if your pleasure outweighs the pain, so if your number is positive at the end, then it's right. If your pain outweighs the pleasure, then it's wrong. So according to utilitarianism, lying can sometimes be justified, usually to avert a catastrophe or save a life. Very rarely is lying justified, but it can sometimes be. It's a little more flexible than Kantian deontology. So do magicians lie? No. I don't think they do. I don't believe magicians lie because it is just a performance. And like any work of fiction, the audience understands the context of a performance. Whether it's a movie or a book or a play or a musical or a magic show, the audience understands that they're seeing a work of fiction. Like if you were reading Harry Potter, upon discovering Hogwarts is not a real place, you wouldn't say, that book lied to me. No, it's just a work of fiction. You understand that. You expect Your expectations are such that not everything will be true. That's what it means to be a work of fiction. So, I don't believe that magicians lie in the context of a performance. And since we don't lie, we don't need to argue about whether or not it's morally permissible to lie during a magic performance, because not only do we not lie, but because of the context of the performance, it's not possible to lie. But deception, we do deceive our audiences. That's a given. Is deception morally permissible during a magic show? I think it is. And I think it's because the audience implicitly enters into a contract with the performer. The audience understands the nature of the performance, the work of fiction, the art form that we're doing. They understand that. And so when they engage with you, when they come into your theater, or even if they agree yes to watch you at a table at a restaurant, they understand that you will be deceiving them. It's the nature of magic, and it's going to be part of the entertainment. So it is morally permissible because you've been given permission by the people that you are deceiving. That's where psychics and mediums get dicey. People who go to see a psychic tend to believe that they're really being contacted by lost loved ones or friends, people who have left this world, and they leave a psychic or a medium with this feeling as though something has happened that absolutely has not happened, and it's such a sense of comfort, which some argue is a good thing, that sense of comfort and closure from contacting a deceased person. But the fact that it's not real, and they're being led to believe that it is real, and the emotions are so overwhelming, I believe that really is very morally wrong. We could go into that quite a bit more for hours, but I will say that I believe it's morally wrong because there is no explicit notification that what they're seeing is just a performance. I would have no problem if a psychic had a big sign on the outside their door that said entertainment purposes only. That would not bother me at all, but most don't, and that really, to me, is not acceptable. One of the oldest debates in Western philosophy is the skeptic's challenge to knowledge. Skepticism. What is skepticism? Well, it's one of the major issues, if not the major issue, of epistemology. Epistemology is an area of philosophy. Epistemologists want to discover what do we know, what can we know, and how do we know that we know it? Epistemology studies the nature of knowledge. Skepticism is an issue within epistemology. So what is skepticism? Well, something comes to mind immediately. Doubt, right? You think somebody's skeptical about something, so you think they doubt it. Well, that is the ordinary use of the term, but we're doing academic philosophy. It's a slightly different thing. We should be clear about the difference. Ordinary doubt is the act of doubting something within a class of undoubted things. That may not make sense yet, so let me explain. Let's say my friend says, "You know, Brian, I'm not sure this bookshelf is real." And I go, "Yeah?" And he goes, "Well, okay, I stand corrected." That's ordinary doubt. You see, his doubt in the reality of the bookshelf is removed by appealing to an undoubted belief. If I can hit it, then it is real. So ordinary doubt is the act of doubting something within a class of undoubted things. In theory, the grounds for doubt can always be removed. But suppose my other friend has been eavesdropping on us, rudely, I might add, and he comes up and he goes, "You know, I'm still not convinced that the bookshelf is real. Maybe, just maybe, there's an evil scientist in the sky and he has all of our brains. We're just brains in vats and we're hooked up with electrodes and he's just using a computer to simulate our reality." Hang out with philosophy majors after a couple of beers, you'll hear that at least once. This obnoxious friend is demonstrating philosophical skepticism. In fact, radical philosophical skepticism. He doesn't just doubt that the bookshelf is real. He doubts our entire system of beliefs and justifications. He's not sure if anything is real. It's doubt without an end. That's the major difference between philosophical skepticism and ordinary doubt. The reason we're talking about skepticism and doubt right now is because they apply to magic in a very intimate way. Renowned magician and skeptic Jamie Ian Swiss once said, magic is a way to entertain with skepticism rather than a wish for supernatural powers. Interesting. Well, I'm not saying this is what Jamie meant, but we can take from that. So he said, magic is a way to entertain with skepticism rather than a wish for supernatural powers. From that, I took, is magic really just philosophical skepticism presented as a form of entertainment? I'd like to think that it is. As an artist, as a magician, and also as a philosopher, I'd like to think that magic as an art can achieve the same level of rigor that philosophical skepticism aspires to. No, a magic performance will never be on the same academic, rigorous level as philosophical skepticism. And the reason is that an audience always has one undoubted belief, and that is, it has to be a trick, even if I can't figure it out. Whenever an audience leaves your show, even if during the show you convinced them that they were seeing impossible things come to life and they were fighting with their own beliefs, and even if you pushed them to question every fiber of their reality during the show, when the show is over, what are they left with? They're left with an undoubted belief it had to be a trick even if I can't figure it out. And as long as that undoubted belief is there, and I'm sure it's always there, I'm convinced that it's always there. As long as that undoubted belief is there, magic can never aspire to the same rigorous level as academic philosophy, academic skepticism. However, that doesn't mean that magic can't benefit the skeptic's cause. You see, magic reminds people that not everything is as it seems. It's easy in our everyday lives to just start to take things for granted and to just believe things we read and not to question our world. But skepticism and magic, in turn, as a form of entertainment, reminds people not to do that. Magic reminds people that you should question things, you should look at things. Not everything is as it seems. The audience must continually check their beliefs against their evidence. And that's something that too many of us take for granted, and I think it's a good thing as magicians to be aware of our capacity for giving that to our audiences.